It was just days before Christmas when Tom, a middle-aged single father, sat alone in his living room, surrounded by the quiet glow of twinkling holiday lights. The house felt colder this year, quieter somehow. But tonight, he was filled with hope. With a trembling smile, he picked up his phone and dialed his son, Jake, who lived across the country. Jake hadn't come home for the past few holidays, and Tom thought maybe this year, he could change that. The phone rang, and Jake answered with surprise in his voice. Tom, trying to sound casual, said, "Hey, buddy. I was thinking I'd fly out and spend Christmas with you this year. Surprise you a little." There was a pause. Then Jake spoke, his voice unsure, almost apologetic. "Dad. I wasn't expecting you. I didn't plan anything. I just figured, you'd be busy, or, tight on money like always." Those words hit Tom harder than he expected. For a moment, he didn't speak. The silence stretched, filling the space between them like a wall. He quickly gathered himself, letting out a soft laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "No worries, Jake. It was just a thought. You take care of yourself." They exchanged a few more polite words before the call ended, but the damage had been done. Tom sat staring at the lights on the tree, feeling smaller than ever. Not because Jake didn't want him there, but because his son had grown used to the idea that he wouldn't come. That he couldn't. And that realization stung deeper than words could say. Tom leaned back in his chair, his heart heavy, wondering when the distance between them had become more than just miles. Tom sat alone on the couch, the room dimly lit by the soft flicker of colored Christmas lights. The silence was thick, no laughter, no music, no scent of cinnamon or pine. Just quiet. In his hands, he held a worn photo album, its pages heavy with memories. He turned to a picture of Jake as a boy, sitting by the fireplace, his face lit up with wonder as he tore through wrapping paper. Beside him in the photo was Tom's late wife, Sarah, mid-laugh, holding a cup of cocoa. That moment had once been so ordinary. Now, it felt like a relic from another life. He traced the edge of Sarah's face in the photo with his thumb. Her loss still echoed in the corners of this house, especially during Christmas. Back then, the holidays were loud, chaotic, full of warmth. They didn't have much, but they had each other. Now, the house felt like a museum of joy long gone. His eyes drifted to the stack of unopened mail on the kitchen counter, bills, final notices, the looming mortgage payment. The money wasn't enough this month. It hadn't been for a while. He sighed, the weight of his loneliness sinking deeper into his chest. There was food in the fridge, heat in the vents, and a roof over his head. But the house felt hollow. He looked around at the decorated walls, the carefully placed stockings, the untouched gifts wrapped with hope rather than excitement. And in a voice barely louder than a whisper, he said to no one, "What's the point of a house, if it's empty?" It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about presence. Connection. A home isn't four walls, it's who's inside them. And right now, Tom had everything, except that. The sun had barely risen when Tom shuffled into the kitchen, the wooden floor cold beneath his feet. A single lamp above the table cast a golden glow on the stack of bills and his laptop. The smell of black coffee filled the room, bitter and grounding. He sat down slowly, the creak of the chair echoing through the quiet house. Steam curled from his mug as he opened the mortgage site, his login details already saved, too familiar by now. The number glared at him. The due date blinked red. Tom's thumb hovered over the Pay Now button, and for a moment, he froze. He could pay it. It would clear the minimum. It would keep the bank off his back for another month. But then what? Another month of silence? Another holiday spent convincing himself this was just how things were now. His eyes drifted to his phone beside the laptop. Jake's number stared back at him from the recent calls list. He remembered the tone in his son's voice, the distance, the hesitation. "I wasn't expecting you." That phrase kept playing in his mind like a song he couldn't shut off. Tom closed the mortgage tab. He opened a flight booking site instead. His hands moved before his doubts could catch up. He searched for the earliest flight he could afford, even if it meant using money he didn't technically have. As he confirmed the booking, his breath caught in his throat, not from fear, but something else. Relief? Hope? He looked out the window as the first light of morning touched the frost-covered lawn. "Maybe I can't afford both," he whispered, "but my son needs a Christmas he won't forget." Click. Payment cancelled. Click. Flight booked. He chose connection over comfort, and love over logic. Snow crunched beneath Tom's boots as he stepped onto the front porch, his breath clouding in the icy Chicago air. He clutched his worn duffel bag in one hand and knocked softly, heart pounding harder than it had in years. Christmas lights flickered around the doorway, casting a warm glow against the cold white snow. For a brief second, he considered turning back. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe Jake really didn't want him here. Then the door swung open. Jake stood there, wide-eyed, a hoodie half-zipped and a mug of coffee in his hand. "Dad," he said, completely stunned. "What are you?" Tom didn't say a word. He just stepped forward and wrapped his arms around his son. For a moment, Jake didn't move. Then he hugged back, tighter than Tom expected. Years of distance and misunderstandings dissolved in that single, silent embrace. Jake stepped aside, overwhelmed. I'm sorry for what I said. I didn't think you'd actually come." Tom smiled through misty eyes. "I came because I needed to." We both did. Inside, the apartment buzzed with warmth. Jake's girlfriend offered him cocoa, his roommates introduced themselves, and someone turned on Christmas music. The couch was cluttered, the tree slightly crooked, but it was perfect. They ordered takeout, played card games, and told stories from years ago, the kind that made everyone laugh until their stomachs hurt. As the night wore on, Tom sat at the dinner table, watching his son laugh with his friends, shoulders relaxed, eyes lit up like they hadn't been in years. He wasn't just a guest, he was part of something again. He hadn't brought presents or money. He brought himself. And sometimes, that's the greatest gift of all. The apartment had grown quiet. The laughter had faded into the hum of the heater, and everyone else had gone to bed. Tom and Jake sat on the couch, a single string of Christmas lights glowing softly behind them. Half-empty mugs of cocoa sat on the table, forgotten. Jake leaned back, his voice softer now, almost fragile. "Dad. I never knew how much I missed this. You showing up was the best gift I didn't know I needed." Tom looked over at him, eyes misty, heart full. "You have no idea how long I've waited to hear that," he said with a small, trembling smile. Then, after a pause, he added, "Money can buy a house, son, but it can't buy these moments." The silence between them wasn't empty anymore, it was peaceful. Healing. Years of unspoken words, swallowed pride, and emotional distance seemed to dissolve in that quiet space. Jake nodded slowly, emotion building in his throat. "I should have invited you. I just didn't think you'd want to come, or could." Tom placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "I'll always show up for you, Jake. No matter what it costs." The next morning, as sunlight streamed in through the frost-kissed windows, Jake handed his dad a cup of coffee and sat beside him at the kitchen counter. "I've been thinking," Jake said, glancing at him. "About everything. The house, the bills, you shouldn't carry that burden alone. I want to help. We'll figure it out, together." Tom didn't answer right away. He just nodded, swallowed hard, and smiled. That Christmas didn't come with expensive gifts or perfect plans. But it came with something better, a second chance at family. And that, more than anything, was the real gift. In the end, it wasn't the decorations, the gifts, or even the house that made Christmas matter, it was the choice to show up when it mattered most. Tom could have played it safe, paid the mortgage, and spent another holiday alone. But instead, he followed his heart, risked comfort for connection, and gave his son the one thing he didn't know he was missing: presents. What began as a painful phone call turned into a quiet miracle, a reunion stitched together by courage, love, and a father's quiet sacrifice. And in that snow-covered apartment, surrounded by laughter and light, Tom and Jake rediscovered not just each other, but the true meaning of home. Because sometimes, the greatest gift we can give isn't wrapped in paper, it's wrapped in time, presence, and love. And when we give that freely, we never leave empty-handed.